Well, first of all, Julia, I want to just send some thanks and some gratitude your way and express my appreciation for your time. And I think for your willingness to come on the podcast. Just a quick backstory. Julia has a YouTube channel called Simplicity Revealed. And I thought she just delicately expresses insight, wisdom, knowledge about life and this experience we're having so eloquently and simplistically. And I guess that's potentially why you may have called your YouTube channel that name. But could you just please introduce yourself for those watching and listening and who may be unaware of who you are?
Yeah, well, my parents were Czech immigrant, and I was born in Houston, Texas. And yeah, I feel like I've had like at least 10,000 lifetimes this go around. I've just been and done so many things. And yeah, I've ended up being a math and science teacher for a while. And then I moved to Prague for a while and actually was in the pharmaceutical industry, which I could never do that again or teach again. And then I kind of woke up when I saw the Zeitgeist movie. And then again in 2012, I had kind of another big boost in just realizing that, wow, nothing is like we've been told. Um, and just started, looking into things and changing my lifestyle and changing my frequency. And yeah, I didn't even, you know, there's so many things I've had to put together in hindsight. As I was going through them, I was just making my way. So, and then fast forward quite a bit, 2016 or so, I discovered this emotional healing modality, language lessons of the heart. And I went through it, and I didn't even know there was such a thing as emotional healing. But basically, our subconscious runs the show for us, and we have all these judgments, like I'm not good enough, and I'm ugly, or whatever. I'm not worthy, basically. And I really had that because from the time I can remember, from the time I was a baby, I had a sister 6 years older that just verbally abused me from day one. And you don't even realize all that stuff just goes in your head. And so I tried to cope with that throughout life by self-medicating with alcohol and drugs.
Right.
Uh,
Sorry to interrupt you there, Julia, but we're gonna touch on those things, and thank you for expressing that. I want to start by just asking you, where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like for you? So I really want to use this time to walk through your life journey with you and to understand how you became to be who you are today, and where the essence of the YouTube videos that I've been watching, where they've come from. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like for you?
it was crazy. I grew up in yeah, I grew up in Houston, Texas, in a really poor area, and my parents owned bars. My mother wasn't a drinker, but she was always at work. So I was basically left at the mercy of my older sister and brother. And like I mentioned earlier, my older sister, she hated me because when I was born, well, I don't know if that's because I think she's a sociopath or maybe even a psychopath. I don't know why, but anyway, when I was born, I almost died when I was in the hospital, and then for some reason the doctors gave me penicillin, and that made me almost die again. And then when my mother finally got me home from the hospital, I heard the story. Of course, I don't remember it. My sister apparently tried to smother me with a pillow. So, that's how it all started. So that makes me think too that, there's a reason I'm here still. So, yeah, so that's how it all started. So it was really abusive. So by the time I was 9 years old, I was already smoking pot. And then by the time I was 12 years old, I was taking these pills we had back then that were basically like drinking and taking ecstasy at the same time. They were really not good, but if you're trying to escape who you are, all that stuff, alcohol, they give you that faux self confidence. They make you feel self confident, but then when you're not under the influence, you're back, to your subconscious running the show because really I think substances put energies in you and everything changes your vibration. So yeah. So, started through the whole drugs thing. Ended up marrying my high school sweetheart who was suicidal. Eventually he succeeded, but not while I was with him. And then married another guy that I was with 18 years. It's funny just calling him a guy. But we kind of went through college together. And it took me a while to get through college. I was 30 before I graduated. And then I became a math and science teacher. And that whole time, especially once I got out of college, I was still just self medicating, mostly with pharmaceuticals, was really, really depressed and, didn't know why. And just kind of went through life depressed, self medicating, you know,
Can
getting
I?
by.
Sorry to interrupt you here. Can I just ask you, how did the death of your first husband affect you, and how did you deal with that?
Well, that happened a long time after we broke up. But he was uh, he was just a mess. I met him right after his mother committed suicide, and I didn't really know that. I met him when I was 15 years old. But the thing was, I wanted to escape my house, and I always escaped my house the whole time I was growing up. I always stayed at other people's houses, oftentimes for months at a time. As long as they would let me. Usually we'd get caught doing something and I'd get kicked out or whatever. So I was always trying to escape my house, and that's how it was with my first boyfriend. It was the escape. His parents had an extra trailer house, and by then I was living in Humble, Texas, which was a suburb outside of Houston, which really saved my life. If I wouldn't have moved there, and I guess that was in 1976. If I wouldn't have moved there, I don't even know if I would have made it staying in Houston because I was getting in a lot of trouble at that time in Houston when I was in like the ninth grade. So yeah, and then I met him when I was in the 10th grade and moved in with him when I was in the 10th grade and stayed with him for, I guess actually 7 years altogether and kind of got forced to marry him because we both became Christians in a very fundamentalist church, like one of those really cult kind of churches that really controlled your life. And they're like, oh, you need to be married. And actually, during that time that we were going to that church for that 2 years, uh, I actually quit smoking cannabis, which was the only time in my life. I still smoke it now, but not like I used to. But so yeah, and then I finally got out of that relationship, which was very abusive too, because he was always like threatening to kill us both, and I'd be driving with him in the car, and he'd go down the freeway saying he's going to run off a bridge or something. So, and at that point too in my life, I was always having these really bad headaches, and I couldn't figure out why. And now I kind of know, I was grinding my teeth all the time too. I always thought I was real calm and relaxed, but again, hindsight, I put things together. So yeah, that was that relationship, and then shortly after I got out of that relationship, I met my new husband. Which that wasn't a really good relationship, really either, of course, because like I talk about in my videos, if you're not emotionally healed and you get in relationships, you know, all that baggage comes with you and it's tough. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, the
Sorry.
first one
Sorry to.
when I actually got his suicide, it was
Right.
well, he actually attempted it, and when he attempted it, he was talking to on the phone to his second wife, and so everyone thought it was me. So they were all like, "What happened? What happened?" So yeah, it was disconcerting. But the way I feel about suicide is kind of a liberating thing for people, and I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like the ultimate in free will, I guess.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with a monk, and we were just talking about how your life can be that bad mentally that it's easier to kill yourself, to commit suicide, than to face the mental suffering, like the anguish itself. Like I couldn't even put myself in a situation where it would be that bad that the only option would be to do that. But how long did you wait from your first marriage to your second marriage, and where were you personally, like going into the relationship and the marriage? How were you, uh, like physiologically and psychologically?
I was yeah. So I was 22 when I split up with. I actually called him Noodles, and and then of course at that point in my life I was always looking for somebody else. There's no way I wanted to be alone. So I was really good at manifesting. My whole life I've been good at manifesting because when I was a kid, I always dreamed I would have a two-story house. I've had three of them now. And the guy I hooked up with after my first husband, the second husband, I don't know why I keep calling him like this guy. It's just because it's not even the same life. It really isn't. I'm just so detached from it now. But I really wanted him. He was just what I needed. And part of me knew because he was a stay-at-home guy. We both worked at a restaurant called Bennigan's. It was an Irish pub kind of restaurant. It was one of those. They were all over the country kind of restaurants, and we both worked there. He was only working 3 days a week because he was writing a science fiction novel, and he stayed at home all the time. At that point, I was really partying, and I knew I needed to settle down more. And he lived about 30 minutes outside the town I was in, so I don't know. I just pursued him, and eventually he was a really hard win too. But eventually, I won him over, and I just manifested that we got together and married and all that. And it's interesting because from the moment that we got together, I would always say, when you're in your midlife crisis, when you're 40, you're going to leave me for a younger woman. And it happened. It happened. He was a little over 40. I was 40 then. He
Wow.
was 46. But, yeah, so yeah, I hooked up with him pretty quick, and it was good though in some ways because, like I said, it got me out of that party environment. And I went back to college, and we both ended up moving to Austin, and he worked on his PhD, which I helped him get through once I finished and started teaching. He got a PhD in theoretical chemical physics, so he is so like indoctrinated with scientism. I was too. I was too. I was totally, into scientism and atheist, all that stuff. And so yeah, we both got through college, and then finally he got his PhD, and he went and got a job in telecom, being a software engineer. After all that stuff, getting a PhD in theoretical physics, he's a software engineer, which he could have just done with a simple bachelor's degree. But anyway, he was making really good money at the time because it was telecom blow up time. We were right in that area, the Dallas Fort Worth area. So got really started making he started making a lot of money, and then I was teaching community college in Plano, Texas, and I had a student that was had a boyfriend of 13 years, and we started being a couple that hung out, and he ended up hooking up with her, and they're still married. And that was in 2002, so they've been married 20 years now. So yeah, I was with him for 18 years. But most of the time I was with him, I was just trying to stay as inebriated as possible. He was very superficial, and I don't know, it just wasn't a match. And mostly it was because neither one of us were healed emotionally, especially me. I was super depressed, super ungrateful. Yeah, just and as far as suicide goes, I never cared if I lived or died, when I was depressed, and I still don't worry about death. I have no fear of death at all. But maybe depression really gets that in on you. But, like if I was flying an airplane or things, I'd fantasize, went down, like, well, at least all these people would go with me. I just didn't have any fear of death and didn't care. And there's some really down times that, I hoped it would happen, but I don't have that kind of courage to actually do it in a way. Even at my worst, I didn't. So really, people that can do it, they have they have something to them. I don't know what it is, but
Mm,
you
it's
know,
almost
right?
like sorry to interrupt you there. It's almost like some people have like a safety mechanism that wouldn't allow them to go that far, but with others, it just seems like there is no fence there, and they can just
Right,
walk on through. So, like going through
right.
these,
And Tom Campbell says about I've talked about him. He's pretty interesting. He's very he goes along with the narrative that we've been fed about history and the way things are. But he says he's really good about simulation theory and out of body experiences because he's amazing. He can do it at will. But he says that people who commit suicide, once you do it, it makes it easier in your next lifetime. Once you do it one lifetime, you know it's an easy out. So things get bad, you're like, oh, checking out, checking out. So that's his theory.
does he say why they continue to come back if they continue to do that? Like if it's easier, let's say that they could potentially
He
do it.
says that we don't really have to come back, but if we don't, we get bored and we eventually do. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, he says that we don't even have to come back here. We can go to another reality stream, but we usually get bored if we decide we want to, just stay on the sidelines for a while because eternity is a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when did the experiences with depression happen for you? Was it at a young age, or was it?
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
beginning, I used to always just tell my mom, I don't feel good. I don't know, I don't feel good. I've always felt depressed.
And
Always
did
did feel depressed.
yeah, did anything happen to you specifically when you were younger, or was this just something that just sort of came out of nowhere and just started just manifesting and expressing itself?
Yeah, just the I don't know, I have kind of like weird memories of certain things, and the way that the drugs that I was taking from the age 12 on, they would just totally knock you out. They're
Wow.
basically date rape drugs, so I'm sure things happened when I was under influence, and there were some occasions I remember. They're pretty traumatic to me. It's just like the neighborhood I lived in, this kind of stuff was normal. But I remember one time I was staying with some friends. It was a dad that had six daughters and their mother drowned. And looking back on it, and remembering that event, the dad was actually abusing one of the daughters. And anyway, that's not even really related. There was this other family, and they had 10 kids, five boys, five girls, a lot of Catholics. Anyway, one of the boys, he was a criminal. I think his brother ended up killing him, but he took me out, and while we were out, he gave me some drugs, and I took them, and they didn't really knock me out, but I was kind of in and out of it. And then he like hit me on the back of the head with something, and then I kind of went what, and he hit me again, but it didn't knock me out. So then he took me back to the house I was staying at, and I went in. And of course, my head was just full of blood and everything. And yeah, that happened. And there were a lot of close calls like that. And there was one time when I guess I was probably about 12 or 13, and this guy on a Harley Davidson. I used to hang out at the park all the time that I walked to from the time I was like 4 years old by myself all the time. And this guy on a Harley's like, "Hey, you want to go for a ride?" I'm like, "Sure." So he takes me out to the middle of nowhere. His name was Crazy. He was a bandito. And he told me, he said, "Don't you ever do anything like this again. I could do anything right now. I could kill you." And he just lectured me. He was just
Mm,
like, angel, he's like, he
mm.
really gave me this lecture. He's like, "You better be careful. You should never just trust somebody." Da, da, da. And he just took me and he lectured me and he brought me back to the park. And he gave me a lesson, a big lesson. So I just, I've had, a lot of incidents like that. So I have guardian angels for sure. I've had a lot of, when I was 15, I fell off a horse and had a really bad head injury and had some really bad car accidents from being inebriated and driving. Never hurt other people, but shouldn't have lived myself. So yeah,
Wow. Um, Through escapism, did you find more escape in the alcohol or the drugs, or both?
the drug, yeah, both kind of, but pills are so easy, no calories, taking me way.
No calories.
No socializing. You don't have to socialize. You don't,
Mm.
yeah. Pharmacy, and you know what? The pills that I took back in the 70s, first they were quaaludes. They were a pharmaceutical, and they quit making them because they wanted opiates in their place because they weren't addictive. They were psychologically addictive more than physiologically, and then they became a street drug. You know, they had the formula, and they had the bootleg version, which was called Mandrax. And what's crazy, I guess, in the early '80s, they went obsolete. So for whatever reason, the system wanted those things out of the system, and now you can't even find them. I think the only place they still have them is in South Africa, and they smoke them. I would never do that, but yeah, it was so weird that they just went off the streets. And I'm like, somebody's in charge of this because it's just a chemical formula, you know. But they were so dangerous because they inebriated you way more than alcohol. If you were on them and you tried to drive, your reflexes were so slow you would definitely have a wreck. And I think that maybe really the elites, I think they were using them too and just having too many accidents. That was my theory on why they just disappeared. They totally went obsolete because it just doesn't make any sense. It's just a chemical formula. Why would it be gone?
Right. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. And in your videos, or a couple of your videos, you've spoken about alcohol. And one specific occasion, you were in Amsterdam, and you spoke about
Right? Yeah.
how you had that you've had these different experiences of something entering your body, and then something, and then leaving, or potentially leaving, and then you've also seen it on how it happened to others. Can you explain that to me and to those
Right.
who are listening? Because I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, the first time was probably in 2001. My ex-husband and I were in Amsterdam, and we were at a bar in the red light district. And I noticed at the bar, we both noticed this lady. She kind of went woozy and almost fell, and her the guy that was with her kind of grabbed her and set her down. And looking at her. Right after that, I kind of felt this energy hit me. And at this point, I was an atheist and all about science. So you know, yeah. So that anyway. So that and then once it hit me, I got real nauseous. So I thought I was gonna throw up, and I walked outside, and I sat down on the stoop, and I passed out and kind of had a seizure. And I woke up, and my people were standing over me or whatever, and I was like, whoa, just okay. And of course, when something like that happens, you worry, what's wrong? Is it a tumor or whatever? It's not a tumor, but
Yeah.
I only really use doctors to get drugs, so I didn't really want to go see a doctor about it, and just forgot about it. And then, and at that point, my vibration was really low. All about our marriage was on the rocks because who knows what he was doing at that point. And I was just really using the pharmaceuticals at the time, and, whatever. And alcohol was part of my normal life. I wasn't Alcohol never was that big of a deal because it was just an aside, with the pharmaceuticals. But so fast forward to, let's see, I moved to Prague in 2005. So yeah, in 2005, I moved to Prague, and one of the reasons I moved to Prague is because I wanted to get away from partying so much in Austin because I was going out every night. I was a school teacher at the time too, and I was like, go teach school and then come home, take a nap, go out and party. Sometimes I'd sleep in my boots and then just put on a long dress the next day to work. I would tell my students because that was after my divorce. That was after my divorce, and I was teaching physics and chemistry. And I tell my students, "I'm sorry, I'm such a slacker teacher these days." And they're like, "Oh no, it's cool, miss. It's cool," because I let them slack. But so yeah, and then so I was, kind of changing my life, and I moved to Prague, and I got a boyfriend there, and my vibration had changed. And I guess that entity that had been in me all this time didn't like it there anymore, and I had the same kind of seizure thing. I'm like, okay, that was weird. That happened a few years ago, so now it happened again, but still didn't put it together. So then lived in Prague for a while, and then got made redundant in my job producing conferences for the pharmaceutical industry, and traveled a lot with that job. And go to Amsterdam a lot because I like cannabis, and all the other towns you had to find the African guy in the square to get it. In Amsterdam, it was way easier. So I did most of my conferences there, and so I went there again. And my boyfriend and I, at that point, that was in like 2008, I guess, yeah, or 2009 even. And so I was in Amsterdam. It might have been 2009, and again, again, my vibration was lowered because I was breaking up with him and moving back to trying to move back to the States and all that. And I was in a bar again in Amsterdam, and the same thing happened. Something went into me, had the little seizure, and I was like, okay. And then I ended up moving back to Austin, Texas, and ended up getting with an old boyfriend and another crazy whole relationship. And then I broke up with him, and I was living with a couple, and that's where I got my dog. I think he was sent to me too, Biggie. But anyway, I was living with them and partying all the time again, just trying to find somebody to love me. And then after a while, I got my dog Biggie, and I just started withdrawing a little bit from the partying. Started watching YouTube videos about different things, just about more spiritual things, quantum physics, things like that. Kind of getting out of my whole, just discovering things besides just what science was telling us. Looking into alternatives, and then I also decided to quit eating meat. Um, just kind of, and I also decided to quit, just chasing men all the time and that kind of thing. And so my vibration changed again. And I actually had a friend over at the time, and I went into the bathroom, and same thing happened. Had the little seizure, felt nauseous, and woke up from, didn't remember, had a seizure again. And then after that one, that's when I put it all together. I was like, oh, okay. So when my vibration changes, that's what happened. It either can go in or out. And then, they don't call alcohol spirits for nothing. And all the times I used to drink and drive, I'm like, how could I even do that? I don't even, I'd be blackout drunk and drive home. How's that even possible? How's that even possible? So, yeah. And so, yeah, I really think that these energies go in you, but I really think it's a frequency thing. And I just talked about that in a recent video because there might be good entities that are in us too in our frequencies that, the more positive state. I don't know. But yeah, I really think that's a real phenomenon. And there's plenty of information out there about it.
Could you just explain to me when it would happen, when they would come in? Have you felt anything like that before? Like, I'm just trying to get a gauge on like what that experience would feel like. Have you done any activity before, or have you felt any sensation like it?
Well, actually, I don't know, but when I was really young, I used to stay with this family. They were a Catholic family, and boy, that was a crazy family because they were friends of my mom's. At first, my parents were Catholic, but then they didn't have the time or money to keep up with going to church. But man, there's some messed up people in that religion because this family, now I know, and a lot of it put together, some of it I heard about, but the dad was abusing the son. They actually slept in the same room together. And the girl that both kids were adopted, she ended up overdosing on heroin. But I would stay over there all the time, and they would just give her anything she wanted. So her mom bought her all kinds of stuff. And she had a Ouija board. And then one time we were doing a séance, and we had candles all lit in the room and everything, and we had music playing on a record player or something. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was. And all of a sudden, we were we were trying to we were calling in this entity called the Purple Passion or something. It was some killer or something. And all of a sudden, all the candles just went out. The door blew open. The music, the record thing went off, we just screamed so loud. It was like, ah! The dad walked in. He's like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it." So yeah, I remember that happening. And with the first movie, well, when I was 9 years old, her mom paid for us to go see The Exorcist in the theater. How horrible is that? And then another movie I remember seeing back then was what is it, where you sell your soul to the devil? And now I realize those are both actually like real.
Yeah, it's almost like predictive programming or just like conditioning programming. You see it over and over again. You just become desensitized to it. It almost becomes the normality of our perception. Um, what do you
Well,
think?
also too, when I was
Sorry, I'll
there
let
was
you.
also yeah, there was also a time too when I was living with my first boyfriend. We were still living together, and he actually left me for an older woman who he was working with for a few months, and I was just in the staying in the trailer by myself. And I remember then that I would hear voices all the time because there was a cemetery right behind us in the Catholic church.
Well, you have honestly been on one hell of a journey. It's fascinating
Yeah,
to
seems
hear your
quite right.
story. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask you, where do you think they came from, or what do you think they are, like looking back on it now, and how much control do you think they had on you or had over you?
But I think when you're unaware, they have a lot of control. Like now, nobody controls me. I have a little saying all the time. I feel like, if things just keep happening, like I keep dropping stuff or whatever, if things aren't going my way, I have a saying where I go, "Yeah, to the count of three to exit my vicinity, or you'll be zapped back into negative infinity."
Mm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I tell them, if you're not here in unconditional love on the path of my bliss and my harmony, then you have to the count of three. But yeah, if you're not aware of them, I think, just like your subconscious runs the show, you're not aware of what's in there. And that's what these things are too. They do get into your subconscious. That's what they do. They run the show, and they're, you can call them entities, you can call them energies, you can call them spirits, whatever. But it's all about your vibration and your awareness.
Right. And I mean, you can just notice it like moment by moment if, you bring presence or awareness or mindfulness to the forefront of the experience. It'll be bliss. And then just out of nowhere, like just this random thought of a, let's say like a nasty act or, having ill will towards someone or wanting something bad for someone. It's just like strange because you're like, where the hell did that come from?
Exactly. Yeah, and you have to check yourself and be like, okay. And like Jason from Archaix says, that's the time when you take a few deep breaths and you reset your frequency. And yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask you, when did your healing journey begin, and which specific healing modalities have you found most beneficial?
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, that was in 2016 when I found Language Lessons of the Heart on YouTube. And that was at a point where I'm like, okay, emotional healing, that's the thing, let's do it. And I just watched all of Michael's videos, even like talked to him and did the process, and it worked to my surprise and joy. So yeah, I just did that emotional healing work and went in there and got those subconscious beliefs and released them and replaced them. That's the key with that process. Is you don't just go in there and go, yeah, I feel bad about myself. Now I'm not. And you kind of do that, but you have a process that you do it with. You release the judgment, and then you put six new judgments in its place that are good judgments. So yeah, you just do that process, and And that's how I also discovered biofield tuning because he interviewed the founder of biofield tuning. And so I got certified to be a biofield tuner, and that's a really cool modality. And also, and it's funny, but before I did any of this, I was just helping some people who wanted cannabis oil for cancer and various things that help. I was trying to help people get that, and I was like, oh, well, I'd love to open a healing center. And that's when I discovered language of the heart and then biofield tuning. So I've just kind of been going in that path ever since then. And now I'm actually on 17 acres here in Portugal and would love to start doing retreat and even have a resort here sometime for healing, emotional healing and even physical too, detox, doing fruit detox and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. And what do you think, or how important is solitude while we heal, and in life in general? How important do you think solitude is?
Yeah, I think it's, we all need to be able to be by ourselves. And I've never really minded it to a small extent. And I know people, like I had a roommate in Austin that he could not stand to be alone. He would leave the house if he was alone. Just couldn't do it. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. You need to have that time for introspection where and just to really where you can really be yourself because if other people are around, we always feel conscientious. So you can't really be authentic initially if you're not by yourself. And if you're not authentic, then you can't really work on yourself because it's not you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard you speak a lot about gratitude and kindness. Was it not until you began healing that gratitude and kindness was more expressed in your life?
Yeah, well, kindness, I was always kind. And because I've always had empathy, like just like my sister, she would always say bad things to me, but I could never say bad things back to her because I knew how it felt. And then my younger sister, who ended up dying from overdosing on pharmaceuticals, when she was 2 years younger, my older sister would get her to gang up on me too, but she wouldn't like my older sister about it. So yeah, and I've always just given things away and helped people. So the kindness was always there, but the gratitude wasn't. I wasn't grateful. I didn't, because I wasn't appreciative. I thought, it's all my perspective. I thought everything was bad, and I had everything. I had so many, you know, but yeah, it was perspective, and yeah, the gratitude definitely wasn't there. Gratitude was not there, and the gratitude changes everything. It has to be genuine. But yeah, it makes all the difference because if you're grateful, you have everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would even be just what is beneficial if you just find things you're grateful for every morning. You don't have to do it like religiously or anything, but really just sinking into that gratitude and actually being genuine about it. And we speak about empathy, and I've heard you in your videos and also in this discussion here speak about specific nutritional lifestyles. And I think I listened to a video of yours today, and you were speaking about going on a plant based diet, um, eating fruit for a week as well. So I just wanted to ask you, what does your current nutrition lifestyle or regimen look like?
Well, I try to eat mostly fruit. I still have my cravings, but yeah, I try to eat mostly fruit. I feel like that's really the best thing for us. And my research has pointed that way. It's alive, it has biophotonic energy, and we really don't need all the dense, heavy things that most of us eat. But yeah, I think we're fruitarians more than any other type of eater. You know, and we have the physiology, the anatomy, and it's just easier on our system. I think humans eat way too much. And the data is looking like it's best just to eat once a day, or eat within a 4 to 8 hour window and eat primarily live, a live food that's easily digestible, and that's fruit. Because vegetables, most of those aren't easily digestible, other than the leafy greens, unless you cook them. And cooked food is denatured. No other animal cooks their food. We're part of nature, and if you look at us, we're just to grab the fruit off the tree, or when it falls, pick it up and eat it. It just makes so much sense. To eat meat is insane. We have to first we don't even kill it ourselves. We can't kill it with our bare hands. And then we have to season it and cook it before we can eat it. It's just insane. And my housemate cooks meat every day, and my nephew lives with me. He's a stroke victim, and they just eat meat all the time. But yeah, I'm mostly fruitarian. I eat a little bit of. Sometimes I eat some breads and sauces, but not much.
Is it any specific fruit you tend to eat, and how often? Was it once a day as well?
Well, I try to. Well, I definitely eat in an 8-hour window. But yeah, I just eat whatever the good fruit is around, and drink a lot of fruit juice, or get um, the fresh pressed juices. It's just better to do yourself. But yeah, and the truth is, it's kind of, if you believe it, it's true. Like my mentor in biofield tuning, she kind of eats whatever she wants. She's moderate. She calls herself modern heathen, moderate heathen. But yeah, I think it's kind of mind over matter in a lot of things. But I know personally, it just makes sense. I feel better when I eat fruit. It really energizes you. Most foods that we eat, you eat it and you get tired. You want to take a nap. Fruit energizes you. The thing when you eat mostly fruit, if you like to sleep a lot, you won't, because you don't need a lot of sleep. But yeah, I suggest everybody try it for at least a week. Sure. I mean, I was on all fruit for a couple of months when I was living in my tent last summer. But yeah, try all fruit. It'll really clean your system out. Dr. Morris, this video, The Great Lymphatic System, it explains a lot.
What are your thoughts on not fresh fruit, like fresh off a tree? I'm talking about the like canned fruit. You know, these are potentially GMO'd or herbicides, pesticides sprayed on them. What are your thoughts on supermarket fruits? Yay or no?
Well, you just have to get whatever you have access to. Like again, a lot of it's just mind over matter, but you just get what you have access to and do the best of that, because it can get expensive in a lot of locations. But canned fruit, I'd stay away. I'd do frozen before I did that, because a lot of them they pasteurize it, so then they cook it, so it's denatured. Frozen, they just freeze it fresh. And if you cook a seed, you're not going to be able to grow anything from it. But if you freeze it, it'll still grow and just on. But yeah, as far as all this, our soil, our air, our water, they're all contaminated. They spray things, that's just the way it is. Our bodies are obviously very resilient. I mean, look at all, like me, I grew up mostly on processed food, and I'm still alive. I'm not, I do have a few symptoms of trying to still work out, but yeah, it's just our bodies are so resilient. And I almost feel like we're here for a certain amount of time. It might not necessarily be years, it might be in terms of lessons, but as many times as I feel like my life's been spared, I think we're here for the duration. It's just a matter of how we feel till we get to that point. If you're gonna get be 100 pounds overweight, always eating crap and having that kind of feeling, or if you want to be light and vital and vibrant until you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you, what prompted you to begin creating your YouTube videos?
Well, I've been kind of wanting to do it for a while, and then my good friend Penny, she gave me a phone that was she wasn't using anymore, so I actually had a phone that with enough memory to do videos. So I started doing them.
Right, and Jason at Archaix, I'm curious to know, how are you able to just simplify his work in such a manner that anyone could understand it? How are you able to do that? Like, what is your method or your process of going through the information and just conveying it to, I think a 7-year-old could potentially understand what you're saying.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's good because maybe people can use it in their homeschooling. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I just really like this work, and I have a lot of spare time in my life of leisure these days, and I just like to learn. When I was a kid, we used to play school, and I was always the teacher. That was one of the things I manifested was becoming a teacher because I grew up in the hood, in the ghetto, and they're like, "You ain't gonna be no teacher, girl. You crazy." It's just one of those things, and so I've always liked to teach people and help them learn. So that just inspired me. So I listened to his videos, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll take a few notes and try to summarize some of the stuff. So I just started doing that. I did that first one, and I'm like, people liked it, so now I'm just kind of doing more and picking different topics. And yeah, with his work, I can probably do that for a long time. He's got so much going on, and then goes off in so many um, tangents and areas and directions. So yeah, his work's really interesting because it has so much data backing it. And I don't know what's true still, but I just think it's fun to look into things and see what's out there and discover and just continue on this adventure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And from what I've watched of him, it's like his mind is a calculator, but the equation is already put in, and he already has the answer, and it's already connected to the next equation, and he's able to like just connect. It's just like this ultimate connectivity of information. You just give him one equation, and then he'll connect that to, another equation. It's so fascinating. Like a guy like Jason. Um, how has his work impacted you in your life? And when you began, I guess, raveling into truths, true truths, did you experience cognitive dissonance?
That's funny you say that because there's a subscriber right now on one of my videos that's having a real issue with cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that I did because I feel like I'm kind of like Tom Campbell says, I'm an open-minded skeptic. You know, I'm really open-minded, and I don't know if I'm a skeptic as much as he is. I'm kind of an open-minded, gullible person, in some ways because I've fallen for so many things, and I get real passionate about things when I find them. But and I always want to share them. I did that. I remember I used to make tapes of music and hand them out to my students or whatever I was really liking. I always want to share it. And yeah, I just like to look into new things and see what's out there and explore them.
Has Jason's work, has it connected to previous people's work that you've studied? Have you found connections? Have you found similarities?
Yeah, definitely with like Tom Campbell, which I mentioned because he's been talking about simulation theory for quite a while now. He's real interesting because he studied with Bob Monroe back in the 60s. Bob Monroe, he has the Monroe Institute in the States somewhere, I don't remember where now, but they teach you how to go out of body. And Bob Monroe was always having these out of body experiences. And he was a wealthy guy and he wanted to figure out why he was having them scientifically. So he went and found a couple of physicists and hired them to set up a lab and do out of body experiences and experiments. And Tom Campbell had already gotten good at meditation because he learned how to transcendental meditate while he was in grad school because it gave him all of that extra time. You don't have to sleep. You can get 4 hours worth of sleep in 20 minutes of meditation. So so they did a bunch of out of body experiments, and Tom Campbell, being a physicist, he did experiments while he was out of body even more. So at this point in his life, he can go out of body at will, and he goes to all these different reality streams, and he's genuine. The only reason I know all this about him, he doesn't talk about his skills. It's just that I've watched hundreds of his videos, and he talked about here and there and that kind of thing. But yeah, just knowing that that's possible, just knowing that that's possible, makes you realize that okay, this reality's not what they say. So Jason's work definitely builds on that. But Tom Campbell has this, the attitude like I mentioned earlier. We just keep coming back here, and we're just here to lower the entropy of the overall system. Just to bring more order and to grow and develop. He calls it the larger consciousness system, God. Other people would call it God or Creator or whatever. And it's still developing too. And Jason kind of has that same thing. The creation is still in process. We're part of creation. So those two, they do have a lot of similarities. And yeah, the whole simulation theory, and again, it's just really a metaphor for us to try to understand what we're going through. I don't really need that to back up all the magic and so-called supernatural things that go on. But they do go on, So it's not just the way I used to think things were, this hard 3D world. We're 99.999% empty space. So, it's all about vibration. It's not about matter.
Absolutely. I want to ask you if you've experienced any out of body experiences or transcendental experiences. Has there been a moment or a point in your life where it's just hit you that this isn't what we've been told it is?
Well, the one thing I remember I wanted to try and lucid dream. And the suggestion was, if you want to lucid dream, start writing your dreams down and have the intention. This is advice from Tom Campbell again. He's always like, it's all about intention. Intention modifies future probability. So I started doing that, and I usually don't even remember my dreams, but I intended to remember them and did. And then I wrote a few down or whatever. And then I finally had a lucid dream. And it was a recurring dream I had where I was always being held captive. And every time I would almost escape, they'd get me again. And had it for years. And I had that dream again, and I was in that dream, and I was like, oh, wait, it was the dream. And I took charge, and I killed the guy, this guy, drunk ass Mark, that used to go to a bar that I used to hang out at. And I killed him in the dream, and then I never had the dream again. So I was able to have that lucid dream just by putting that intention in and doing that. It didn't take long, just a few weeks. But I think it's all about intention and how bad you want stuff like that to happen. I haven't really tried to do anything else, but I think if I really wanted it and put the intention and the work behind it, that I could manifest it. And I do believe a lot of the people that talk about their experiences, I know some people do embellish, not all of them, and probably not most of them. But other than that one, I haven't really had anything, Even the times when I've had nearly died or whatever, I didn't have the typical out of body near death experiences that people have.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And from my experience, I was sharing experience. I lucid dream fairly often, and it's strange because it makes you just question reality, right? Like, what is real in a sense where you're in a dream and you just notice that something's off, and then something triggers some type of self awareness where in the dream you're like, oh, okay, I'm dreaming, and then you just shoot up and just start flying. It's just fascinating, like the mind itself, and I think how cognitively the mind is just almost playing out different shades of reality, like different channels on like a radio wave. It's so difficult to understand, but it's so liberating as well, having experiences like that. I guess it just, yeah, I guess it just shows you like there's like no doubt that something is off, or there is more than this conscious experience or supposed conscious experience we're having. And what fascinates me is how Jason talks about errants. And I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on NPCs or like soulless beings, like just people who are, let's say they're just empty and they're like a computer program almost. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is a weird topic, and it's interesting because I was just talking to someone about that right before here, and been thinking about that in terms of putting a video together too. So yeah, that whole NPC thing is very interesting. And I often wonder if animals are NPCs, or if they're like the human population, and some of them are, and some of them aren't. And can NPCs potentially have a soul, or immortal personality, as Jason likes to call them? You know, do they have an opportunity to act? Is it about their vibration? If you're at a low enough vibration, you don't get a soul. If you're so compliant, if the default programming put in you is is working really well, that you, a soul doesn't want to inhabit you because they wouldn't have any abilities there. They wouldn't have any way to drive the vehicle. So yeah, that's one of those topics that's really interesting to think about. But I definitely think there's a lot of people out there that are just like my friend in Spain. It's almost like her husband was an NPC put here to save her life. They've been together a long time now because he's just so oblivious to things. You can be like, oh yeah, I see this spray in the sky, and he'll be like, what spray? What? They're just not at the same vibrational frequency. So yeah, how that all works, Dolores Cannon called them background people, and I can see the point of the system putting them in there to keep the show going the way they want it. They need those people just to do everything they're supposed to do to make it look like this is all real and it's all material.
Yeah,
So
just to like continue on with that, it's what I find fascinating is that you know someone could be seems like they think they are awoken spiritually, like they've had some type of experience, yet they still haven't seen like the control system, like how everything is just working and just creating this process or like this matrix. Have you come across people like that? Like maybe they're, let's say, spiritual and they've had some type of spiritual experience, yet they have absolutely no idea what's going on.
totally, I think most people, so many of them, I think we errants are a lower percentage than we realize sometimes, because that's it. You're exactly describing my friend I was just mentioning in Spain. She just had all these experiences, and in some ways she's just so enlightened, so to speak, and then in other ways it's like, okay, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna go get my jab or whatever. So yeah, it's really strange, those type of people. And I don't know how that works. Again, I guess it's a frequency thing. They just can't quite make that jump.
Right. Yeah. And just to use an example here, I was watching a video of a guy, and this is a quite a well-known guy, and he was talking about how during the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, they had Johnny Depp in the Amber Heard trial, and then the mainstream media, worldwide media, was just continually just pushing that day in day out, and we heard nothing on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. But then, like the next day, he goes and gets his stabbies, his jibby jab. So I was just fascinated. Like he could call out one thing of the control mechanism, or how calling something out, like identifying something on one hand, but then just like completely not realize that these are the same people that are distributing these stabbies. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. And just for our listeners, and even for myself, could you just briefly describe an errant, please?
Well, yeah, the way Jason said it, we have imagination, empathy, and what's the other one? Part, and also we errant. They just don't go along with the system. If a rule doesn't make sense, they're not going to follow it. And that's even before we're awake, right? Because I've always been like that. If a rule doesn't make sense, whatever. I'm not going to do it. Sometimes, even if it does, I'm not going to do it. I still don't wear my seatbelt because I'm not worried. I'm not worried. My guardian angels got my back. And yeah, it's just those people that just have that sureness to them, that it's all good. I don't have to buy the narrative and buy into all the fear. Errands are fearless, and they have empathy for others, and they have an imagination. They can envision what they want. Apparently, a lot of people out there don't have an imagination. And, yeah, I guess that's what errands are. How would you define them?
Yeah, I would go along with how you described it. It's intuitive, compassionate, empathetic, imaginative. Think outside the box. I think,
Right, intuition.
right. I think like an ability to sense that something isn't right, or something's just feeling off. Like when you walk into a room and you can just feel a certain way. Like maybe there's been like arguing or joy or laughter or suspense, and you can walk in to a certain situation and you can like almost feel that and just like intuitively sense what's going on. I feel that way when I come across information, but then in saying that, it's like when you're so open-minded, it's just like okay, well, potentially, like, let's see where this fits into everything else I know. And definitely fearless, like not being afraid to die. For me personally, I think that's what led to my spiritual awakening, accepting death, facing death, and really coming up against it and being okay with it, like just releasing all my fears and doubts and insecurities in front of it. That's how I would explain it. It's quite strange. Like I remember, because I was at a monastery actually. I spent two weeks at a monastery, at a Buddhist monastery here in New Zealand, and this was when I was, let's say asleep, and I think it was like the third day, because all you do is there's no technology. It's just you're in nature. There's not much talking. It's one meal a day. It's you live that monk lifestyle, but as a lay person. So a lot of your time, like 10 hours a day, is just meditation. And this was the first time I actually began meditating, and I just had that profound experience where there's a point where for me the ego, it starts to trick you. It starts to say, hey, like, um everything's okay now. Because I went there to heal. I went there because I was led there, really. I just ended up there, and I think curiosity. So what I noticed, like, over the first few days, was the ego started to trick me and say, you're okay now. Like, man, I'm so excited to get back into life. But then and then that made me want to leave. It made me want to go, and I started contemplating, okay, like, I'll just tell them that I've got a sick friend and I need to go look after them. So it was me almost copping out in a way, but and I stayed. The next day, I maybe I should have saved this for another time, but anyway, I just had this profound experience, like this massive ego death. I went on top of this hill, and I just said, I'm not afraid. Take everything. Take my life. Take my friends. Take my family. Take it all. You have nothing on me. Absolutely nothing. And I could leave here, right now, and it doesn't bother me. And then anyway, I had a massive ego death about a day later after that at the monastery. And I think that's what really opened my heart, but also opened my mind. And so anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. I went a bit off topic there, but yeah, to me, an errant, that's what an
Well,
errant
that
is.
is key. Your death is key because that's what the system has everybody. They're all worried about dying. That's why they're all poison in their body right now because they're worried they're gonna die. We all gonna die. It's just and we really don't die though. That's the thing. Yeah, and once you lose that fear of death, you are liberated. You are liberated, and yeah, huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great story. 2 weeks is a long time to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you can also, have a profound experience like that through, high dose of psychedelics, maybe LSD or shrooms, if, because I've heard of other people having experiences through those modalities. What are your thoughts on Agenda 2030? And, we're seeing like the WEF talk about this great reset. How do you think the great reset is connected in us moving towards the 2040 Phoenix event? Do you think they're trying to get us in a specific like situation before we go into this 2040 Phoenix event? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that people are saying is they're trying to make sure everybody's in fear. The more people that are in fear, because that's what the Phoenix target is, that fear frequency. It helps the parasitic rulers. I don't like to call them elites. Gives them a better chance of surviving it or whatever. So that's one thing that's been thrown out there. I think it's all kind of leading up to what Jason says is going to happen before 2040. He says that people are going to be, kind of like they are now, the whole Sodom and Gomorrah, just excess and pleasure. But we're all going to have plenty of food, but we're not going to have luxury or not going to have other things like even cars and, non-essentials. We'll have the basics, but not everything. And that's kind of what they're pushing. You'll have nothing and be happy, but you don't really have nothing. You still have your food and you can go about and things like that. So it kind of matches up to what he's saying is going to happen before then. But I think the main thing is to just make sure you keep your own reality bubble and informed field where you want it, because regardless of what happens, you can see it's just going more and more to disorder right now. It's definitely not going the other way. So I'd say just keep your own vicinity the way you want it, and kind of watch and see what happens. But yeah, I think it's just kind of going. I think they want to go to this whole social crediting system, and I don't know. This is such an interesting time to be alive and explore all of this, and have the technology like you and I talking in real time. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible, isn't it? Just to think about how fast I guess how fast technology has come from, when it was supposedly, first created, or when it was, made public, and then to where we are now, where we can talk. And I'm in New Zealand, and you're on the other side of the world, and we can just conversate about these interesting topics, and then obviously we're recording it, so then we can put it out and allow others to hear the conversation as well. Following the 2040 event, we know that Jason's been talking about and discussing the 2046, the Nemesis event, and then also the 2178 simulation ending. Can you, because I guess for me, I'm not afraid to say that I am like a layman's, I guess I understand Jason's work on a layman's term, uh, partly because I haven't spent lots and lots of time watching his content, but also I do struggle to, um, I guess, like digest information and keep what I need to, and I guess throw away what I don't need. So could you just explain to me and to the viewers what the 2046 event is, and the ending of the simulation?
Yeah, there's still some questions here, but yeah, in 2046 is the Nemesis event, which is also the return of planet Nibiru. And that's really the whole reason for the simulation, according to Jason. And that's where the simulation starts when the real Earth, which is not flat, was
Triggered.
it's flat now, but it wasn't. Anyway, that's a long story. We have to watch my videos. But so yeah, when the real Earth was we were in a binary system, peacefully orbiting the way that worked, and then one of the stars collapsed and it upset everything and knocked eventually catapulted the Earth to where it is now, and catapulted this Nemesis object, also known as Nibiru, out into a 972-year orbit, and it's returning in 2046. And it's just one of those cyclical events that's discriminatory because I guess in the simulation, that's the whole reason for the simulation was supposed to either be to prevent this event or to survive it. So if it's to prevent it, that means it hasn't even happened yet. So that's also a really hard thing to think about there. And so that event is, going to be very devastating, and it's really interesting how this is all going to play out. And I have a lot of confusion here too, because in 2040 we're supposed to have the return of the vapor canopy. So I would assume in 2046 that'll get destroyed again, which would cause another great flood. So I don't know. There's some questions there too. And then in 2106, Enoch or Inky is supposed to return and bring the cap to the pyramid and activate that somehow. So I really still have a lot of confusion around that. But and Jason even replied to some comments about that too, because he used to want to try to stop the Phoenix event by activating the pyramid, and now he's saying that we can do it between 2040. I can't even remember, but yeah, I have a confusion about that too. The 2178, the reason he came to that, he realized that that was 138 years after 2040. And 138 years is the cycle for the Phoenix event. And the Phoenix event is a reset protocol, but it's also set to end the simulation with the last one. And the reason it's the number 2178 is because that's the only number that doesn't reduce to zero when you take it inverse and take the difference, and you take that inverse and take the difference all the way down. Every other number you do that with goes to zero, but 2178 just goes back to 2178. So it's the loop. So that's how he worked out that it'll be the end of the simulacrum or the simulation. But it's sounding like it might have the potential to end earlier than that. So I don't know. You'll have to stay tuned to Archaix on that one.
Yeah, yeah. Archaix and definitely your channel, just to have it simplified, man. Because I mean, the information that Jason is putting out at Archaix is it's amazing, like what he's been able to find and dive deeply into
Yeah.
while he was in prison. It's so mind baffling. Like I think about him and I'm like, are you even human?
Right. Yeah. Like I almost think he's a reincarnation of Nostradamus,
Hmm.
or somebody. Yeah, he's definitely, yeah, and maybe he's not. Maybe I think he's a true prophet, and he really is. If he's right with his predictions, the way he does his isometric predictions, then he's definitely a prophet. He's broken the code on how to predict things, and he can teach it to anyone. There's a YouTube channel out there, Square Peg Divergent, that she's picked up on that and really teaches people how to do that. So if anybody wants to be predicting the future, y'all can go there. But yeah, time will tell too. I like Jason's work because 18 years really isn't that long, and we will be able to see if he's right. At least about the Phoenix event. Anyway, if that happens, I mean, if we're in a vapor canopy, all of a sudden, we'll be like, okay, I might want to listen to Jason now. But yeah, it's just amazing, and too, just his time in prison. You think about, how the time you have in prison. Are you kidding? Just all day, every day to study. And have you seen his notes and the way he writes and the diagrams and all his drawings? It's just unbelievable. He's such a gift. He's such a gift. And yeah, but listening to him sometimes is like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant. It's just so much and so involved. Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad started breaking his videos down. It seems like it's helping a lot of people to decipher it and to to decide if it resonates with them or not, because that's really the bottom line. And so many people want to go, well, it's history, it's all lies. But like, you also have to use your intuition. That's what one of the things we errant have that we have to use too, and just work through it and see where it goes, and try to keep the cognitive dissonance, in check, and work from there.
Absolutely. Heading heading towards 2040, I guess for errants who, like for myself, I'll speak from experience. It wasn't until maybe a year and a half ago where I actually consciously decided that I'd start taking care of myself and holistically to the best of my ability as I continue to learn how I can do that better. What would you recommend errants and others do in general to raise their vibration to get in the correct state and frequency that we need to be in when these times come?
Yeah, definitely lose the fear. You know, that's number one. And then yeah, clean your vessel and respect it. Like, I feel so bad for all the abuse I put my body through, and the fact that it's still working and my brain is still working, just boggles the mind, so to speak. But yeah, it's just, we're such miracles, and we really need to respect this vessel. And we just put all these substances in there. Really consider it and do some open-minded research and to what's really healthy for our bodies. It's just, we got everything mixed up about that. And do your emotional healing work. Go in and find those subconscious beliefs that are pulling you back. Some people even say it out loud to them. I hear people go, "I'm so stupid." That's not cool. You shouldn't be saying that kind of stuff to yourself. Use language lessons of the heart or another one, but do that shadow work, and that's huge in your vibration. And I think that's something that's missed so much. Even in manifesting, if your subconscious isn't where it needs to be, then you're not going to really have control, because it has control. So that's huge, is to go do your shadow work, and be mindful of what you put in your body and your mind. And if you're sitting around watching soap operas or Netflix all day, that's probably not great for your vibration either. So yeah, just be mindful of just everything that goes into you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Like thinking about the way that we spend our time. And I think about social media, and I'm my social media use is at a minimal, and I use it consciously when I know what I'm going to use it for, not just to be mindlessly taken over. Um, but I find it interesting, like even like when you're scrolling, like let's say Facebook, for example, how you can just see different posts. Like you might see a happy post, and then that makes you feel a certain way, and then someone, so and so has been murdered, and then that makes you feel a certain way, and then you could just imagine this regurgitating expression, an act of scrolling and putting your like your mind and your body, like your energetic field through that. And then after, it takes you, so like an hour later you're like, oh wow, where did the time go? And then you just feel disgusting. Like you don't feel good. You never feel good when you just, all you do is consume. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you've decided and you made that choice to like express yourself. And have you found that to be healing? Because for me personally, like I've just started this podcast just over a week ago, and I feel so good connecting with like-minded individuals. It feels so healing and invigorating. Like I feel alive. I feel like I'm doing something positive and productive and constructive for myself and for others.
Yeah, totally. And it is that ability to connect, because we talked earlier about solitude. So it's great in today's world with technology. You can have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. You can have your solitude, but then you can connect with people too that get you, because we all have great things going around in our head, and just, we all have insight from our experiences that other people can benefit from. But if we don't share it, it doesn't get out there in the ether, really. So it's great to seize on these opportunities. I encourage everybody to do this kind of thing. And it gives you your voice. Instead of, it's just, it's yeah, it is great. It is a very healing thing to do, and I'm sure we can both recommend that other people do that. Get out there and tell your story. Other people, can resonate with it and relate to it and learn from it, and maybe even, help them in their healing with it too. It is. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, beautifully said. So I've got two final questions here, and um, I want to just celebrate you for a moment and ask you, what are you proud of doing in this life?
I don't know if it's proud. Like, I'm just happy that I've gotten this far, really, and that I don't feel the need to escape myself anymore. I guess healing emotionally, that's probably what I'm most proud of myself for. I'm always happy to help other people when I can, and hopefully I'll get more opportunity to do that. Right now, I'm kind of very isolated. Jason says that's how it works. That you, they, when you start manifesting, it likes to keep you isolated so you don't like let that get on to other people. But yeah, just proud that I've gotten to a point that I can genuinely be happy just to be alive. Because when you're depressed, you're never happy. I guess that's what depression means, right? So yeah, just to get to that point where you can just see the joy in the little things, like when I'm walking with my dog, just watching my dog. Just one of those little things just can make you so happy. So just getting to that point where you can really appreciate those little things in life.
Yeah, wow, that was incredible. And I felt that, and I feel it in your videos, especially when you share certain moments. Like one of the videos I recall, you shared a sunset, and it was just beautiful. And I think even like I just recognize like you taking the time and having that just the awareness to stop and appreciate it, and then to also bring us along with that. Like I really appreciated that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for what you're doing. I think, yeah, I really like your style, and I think you're going to be a great success.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I like to ask this question because I'm really curious as to what people, as to what is going on in people's minds and in people's hearts. So the final question is always, what is your hope for the world and for future generations?
Yeah, that people would do their emotional healing work, so we wouldn't have to raise kids that need to do it. Kids are just so discarded. Kids, we call them children now. So they're so discarded and overlooked. I mean, people get married, they're not emotionally healed. They have children, and the children just have to deal with things. I really think if we do make it that much longer in this simulation or this world, if there are that many future generations, it would just be great if the kids were priority again. And I know that a lot of people don't like that notion of the mother staying home with the children, but that's what women are meant to do, and that's what we like doing best. We don't want to be a secretary or whatever. I mean, that's kind of dated now too. But yeah, to put children as priority and make sure that they're protected from that early age, because up until 7 years old, that's when really the programming goes in. If all you put is great things in their minds till they're 7 years old, and just nurture that and make sure don't stick them in the public schools and let them get indoctrinated into the system. Treat every being special. If we had a couple of generations where kids were really treated like they need to be treated, then that would change everything. I mean, it would change the whole paradigm, the whole frequency of the realm.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's actually something I often contemplate. I don't have kids of my own. I'm probably still a kid myself, but yeah, I just think about like the pure divinity of that child. Like what a blessing to this world it is, and then to see it from birth, and when it's absolutely when they're absolutely perfect, and then to see them at 18, and maybe they're depressed and they're on drugs, and they're narcissistic, and they're just unfulfilled and unhappy. It's really sad to see that. And man, I couldn't agree with you more. I absolutely wish that for all the kids, coming into this world and into this experience. May they be taken care of, and loved and cherished and honored and respected. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Look, Julia, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Um, the thing with like doing these podcasts is like I have to reach out to individuals who I find fascinating and I feel like I resonate with, and I almost take a leap of faith. And I'm always grateful. I'm truly always grateful when they agree to do it. So thank you so much for your time, and many blessings to you. And I can't wait to just continue watching your videos on YouTube as well.
Well, thank you so much, Jake. And ditto. I'm looking forward to listening to your podcast.
Yeah, much love. All right, thank you so much, and I think you have a great day. And I'm about to hit the sack,
You have a
aka
good
jump
night.
in bed. Yeah.
Right.